Hey guys, wow, you trudge down the hallway in that half-lit pre-dawn hush, your breath forming clouds in the chill, and the next thing you know, the door explodes inward, walls glow under tactical flashlights. You probably won't survive this unscathed. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Share your location and local time in the comments, and let's go on the journey of today's story together. You hear the thuds before the voices. Heartbeats sync with the rhythm of boots. The world is still, but not for long. The ice raid at dawn doesn't wait for sunrise. You're thrust into a scene scripted by federal enforcement, but written in the throbbing fear of a family awakened without warning. This isn't hypothetical. In mid-June 2025, ICE detained more than 11,700 people with no criminal record, a 1,271% surge from before the current administration took office. The official line from DHS claims they're targeting the worst of the worst. But the truth on paper tells a darker story. As of late June, 71.7% of nearly 58,000 detainees had no criminal convictions, and only a fraction, even among those convicted, were linked to violent crimes. The flash of guns, the rigidity of protocol, the siblings huddled in the corner, this is justice in motion. Or is it something else? You feel the disconnect between intent and outcome, between rhetoric and reality, tightening like a vice around your chest. You're in the shoes of the person on the other side of that door, someone who didn't do anything violent, someone whose only offense might be paperwork, status, or appearance. And now the story pulls you in not to judge, but to feel, because you're not just watching, you're there, living it. The line between order and cruelty blurs. The pounding in your ears fades into a hollow throb as you realize this scene didn't erupt from nowhere. Somewhere, in a windowless operations room hours away, agents leaned over maps and printouts, tracking patterns in grocery store receipts, pay stubs, and license plate logs. A wall of photographs, some candid, some official, was studied under harsh fluorescent light. It's here that the sweep was born, not in chaos, but in calculation. Weeks before the knock, ICE field offices sent requests to local police for cooperation opportunities. Even in so-called sanctuary cities, those requests find cracks in the law. An arrest for a broken taillight, a tip from a disgruntled neighbor, a clerical error in a DMV database, each can place a name on a list. According to an internal ICE report obtained by the Marshall Project, more than 40% of arrests in workplace raids between 2022 and 2024 began with traffic violations, not felonies. And then there's the odd detail you wouldn't expect. During a 2024 sweep in New Orleans, one targeted address turned out to be a vacant lot. The team still logged it as successfully cleared, a footnote buried in the after-action report. This is what planning looks like when bureaucracy meets force, precise on paper, messy in reality. The agents in that room talk in clipped sentences, in codes: target acquired, package in motion, window of opportunity. Outside, in the neighborhoods marked in red, families shop for groceries, kids swap soccer cleats for school shoes, someone waters a tomato plant. They have no idea a date and time have been set for their lives to change. Social media fills with debates after each sweep, comments swinging between law and order and state overreach. On a recent ICE announcement post, one user wrote, "Why bother with warrants? They know they're illegal." While another shot back, "So is breaking into homes without cause." Neither side knows the people in the photos, yet both claim the moral high ground. You stand between those two voices, feeling the weight of strategy as heavily as the slam of a boot on the porch. What looks like sudden violence is really the last act of a long, bad, hidden process, one where the decision to come for you was made long before you woke up. Marisol doesn't have time to wonder about planning or operations rooms. She's standing at her kitchen counter, slicing apples into a plastic lunchbox while the coffee maker gurgles in the corner. The morning smells like cinnamon toast and brewing espresso. The soundtrack, a mix of her daughter humming upstairs and the soft beep of the microwave reheating tortillas. She's been in the U.S. for 12 years, long enough for her English to carry the same lilt as her neighbors, long enough to forget the last time she truly unpacked a suitcase. The first sound is the scrape of boots on gravel. Then the knock sharp, repeated, too loud to be polite. She freezes, knife in hand, the apple slices browning in air gone suddenly cold. The blinds are still half closed, but through the gap she sees shadows shift, black fabric with white letters and the dull shine of body armor. Her heart slams, and she thinks of the warning she heard from a friend at church. They come before the sun, so no one can see. She runs upstairs, Whisper shouts her daughter's name. The girl's eyes are wide before she's even told what's happening. Kids understand fear faster than words. They huddle in the small bedroom as the pounding comes again, a voice shouting her name, mispronouncing it. The agents outside have a paper, but not a warrant for the home. The order is for a person, not a place. It's a crucial distinction under the law, but in the moment, it's as good as a key. In a 2023 ProPublica investigation, one ICE raid in Tennessee captured on neighbor's cell phone showed officers entering without proper consent, claiming hot pursuit of a target who wasn't there. The official ICE statement later called it a routine apprehension. That phrase runs through Marisol's mind now, absurd and clinical, as if routine could ever feel like this. On social media, similar footage circulates, drawing arguments under every repost. One person calls it justice served, another labels it terror in plain sight. Neither will see Marisol's apple slices still on the counter, the coffee cooling into bitterness, or the way her daughter's hands shake as she clutches her sleeve. The moment the bedroom door opens will feel like an explosion, but the real detonation is already in motion inside her and in the lives now bound to a federal case number. You think you know the numbers because you've heard them repeated in headlines, but when you start peeling them back, the truth is even starker. Track Immigration's latest release shows that in the first half of 2025, 68% of individuals taken in ICE raids had no criminal convictions, not even misdemeanors. The public briefings lean heavily on the other 32%, the public safety threats. But that phrase covers everything from violent felonies to expired vehicle tags. ICE's own press releases often spotlight dramatic arrests, gang leaders, human traffickers, while burying in the final paragraphs that most people detained during those same operations were not on any most wanted list. For example, in a May 2025 workplace enforcement action in Texas, ICE announced 14 priority removals, but detained 53 others who had no prior arrests or charges. Those 53 are just a footnote. And then there's the bizarre, almost surreal statistic tucked into a DHS Inspector General report. During one multi-state sweep in 2024, 3 of the individuals apprehended were U.S. citizens, 2 because they shared a similar name with the intended target, and 1 because of a decades-old data entry error that had never been corrected. All 3 were released eventually, but only after hours in holding cells. This is where the narrative splits. On one side, ICE spokespeople point to necessary precision in a dangerous environment, insisting that occasional errors are inevitable when dealing with large-scale enforcement. On the other, immigrant rights attorneys argue that those errors are actually systemic failures enabled by outdated databases and unchecked field discretion. Social media commentary mirrors the divide. Under an NPR article about a recent New Jersey raid, one commenter wrote, "One innocent mistake is worth it if it keeps us safe," while another replied, "If safety means arresting citizens in their pajamas, what are we protecting?" The numbers don't knock at your door with rifles and boots, but they are the scaffolding that holds the raids together. Every percentage point is a life, every statistical anomaly, a face in a kitchen window, or a child's scream in the driveway. You begin to realize that the story isn't just about who gets taken, it's about who gets counted and who disappears into the margins of the report. You're standing there, caught in the tension that splits communities into sharp halves. On one side, the argument is as old as immigration enforcement itself, that raids are about protecting public safety, removing individuals with dangerous criminal histories, and deterring future violations. ICE press releases are crafted to reinforce this view, with phrases like prioritizing public safety threats and removing those who endanger our communities. Supporters quote these lines in town hall meetings and Facebook debates, insisting that without enforcement, laws are meaningless. But the other side sees something different, a pattern where those most affected are not violent offenders, but parents, workers, and longtime residents whose only violations are civil immigration infractions. Advocacy groups point to data like TRAC's finding that nearly 7 in 10 detainees have no criminal convictions, and ask whether the cost of such raids is morally defensible. They argue that public safety is undermined, not strengthened, when communities live in fear of reporting crimes or cooperating with police. Oddly, buried in a 2024 ICE training memo, there's a line that reads, "Media optics must be considered when detaining non-targets present at the scene." That's bureaucratic language for don't get caught on video arresting the wrong person, and yet those videos keep surfacing. In one widely shared clip from Illinois, agents are seen detaining a man after he produced valid work authorization, insisting they needed to verify. The verification took 6 hours in a holding facility. Commentary flares up every time such footage goes viral. A recent independent op-ed asked, if the premise is that laws must be enforced, should that principle not extend to ICE following its own regulations? It's a question that doesn't sit comfortably in sound bites. As you watch the debate unfold, you realize how easily security can be both a shield and a weapon. One side sees enforcement as a moral duty, the other sees it as moral failure. And here you are, wedged in the middle, knowing that whether you lean toward law or compassion, neither stance erases the image of Marisol's daughter clutching her sleeve as the boots come up the stairs. You don't see the driveway until it's too late. By then, the agents have already moved in black uniforms, clipped commands, metal cuffs clicking shut in rhythm. The neighbors watch from behind curtains, their faces pale squares in darkened windows. But what cuts deepest is the sound, a thin, breaking wail that you realize comes from a child standing barefoot on the cold concrete. She's not the only one. In footage from a February 2025 raid outside Houston, a boy no older than 10 stands beside a rusted pickup, hugging a toddler so tightly her feet dangle. The ICE statement after the operation lists 22 removals of priority targets, but says nothing about the children left in the yard as parents were driven away. The odd detail? A news crew from a local station happened to be on site covering an unrelated zoning dispute. Their cameras caught not just the arrest, but the silence afterward, how no one spoke to the children. No one told them where they'd be sleeping that night. Advocates argue this silence is part of the harm. The ACLU's Immigrant Rights Project points to multiple incidents where minors were left without guardianship plans during raids, relying instead on hurried calls to relatives or neighbors. ICE maintains that every effort is made to place children with trusted adults, but the policy doesn't require proof that those adults are immediately available. Social media swells with reactions whenever such images surface. One viral comment under a clip from New Mexico read, "If you can watch a child cry for their mother and still cheer, you've lost something essential." Others fire back with, "The parents knew the risks." Back and forth, the moral volley ignores the children themselves, who are still standing in the driveway long after the cameras leave. And you can't unsee them, thin arms wrapped around each other, shoes left on the porch, the driveway chalk drawings fading under the slow gray creep of dusk. In that moment, whatever you believe about laws or borders, the question shifts, not whether the raid was legal, but whether it was human. Hours later, long after the raid trucks vanish and the last echo of boots has faded, you're left with the stillness. The neighborhood looks the same. Same cracked sidewalks, same laundry flapping on the lines, but something invisible has shifted. You can feel it in the way people glance at each other, measuring trust, deciding whether to speak. The raid has become more than an arrest. It's a story etched into the collective memory, a mirror reflecting who we are when power meets vulnerability. You think about the language used to describe it: target apprehension, enforcement action, operational success. These words, polished and official, scrape against the raw images in your mind. Marisol's coffee cooling on the counter, her daughter's hand gripping her sleeve, the chalk lines on the driveway. The disconnect gnaws at you. Oddly enough, a 2024 ICE Community Relations memo meant to help agents foster trust, advise teams to avoid unnecessary displays of force in residential areas. Yet in raid after raid, long rifles and tactical gear appear even when the target has no history of violence. Critics argue that this is theater, meant to send a message as much as to make an arrest. Supporters counter that operational readiness demands worst-case preparation, because the moment you assume safety, you risk lives. Commentary from the Guardian's immigration desk framed it as a test of national identity. Are we a country defined by the letter of the law or by the spirit behind it? That question isn't abstract here. It's written into the quiet spaces between houses, in the way parents now walk their kids to school instead of letting them go alone. And here you stand, looking into that mirror. Do you see resolve, fear, indifference, or compassion staring back? Do you recognize the trade-offs we've made, or the ones we pretend not to see? It's tempting to imagine this as someone else's fight, but the truth is, the story says as much about you as it does about those who were taken. The raid may be over, but its shadow stretches across the block, lingering in every locked door and lowered voice, waiting for the next knock. You're not in the driveway anymore. You're back inside your own home, the hum of your refrigerator filling the silence, but the story hasn't let go. It sits with you at the kitchen table, across from your untouched cup of coffee. Because now, the question isn't just what happened to them, it's what happens to you if you do nothing. In the days after the raid, local news moves on to other stories, but the families left behind are still untangling the wreckage. One neighbor starts a fundraiser to cover legal fees. Another drives the kids to school, while their guardians meet with lawyers. At a town hall, a council member proposes a resolution asking ICE to coordinate with local agencies before raids, a suggestion met with applause and boos in equal measure. ICE declines to comment, citing operational security. The oddest thread comes from a Reuters piece about an unrelated raid in 2024, where an entire block organized a door watch system, afterward volunteers taking shifts to warn residents if unmarked vans appeared. Within weeks, participation dwindled, not because people stopped caring, but because the constant vigilance became exhausting. That exhaustion is part of the cost, too. Online, the debate rolls on. A viral post on WLWT's Facebook page asks bluntly, if ICE came for your neighbor, would you speak up or stay quiet? Thousands of replies pour in, half insisting on non-interference, half vowing to film everything and post it online. The divide is stark, but the comments all reveal one truth. Everyone imagines it as a choice made in the moment, when in reality, it's a choice you make long before the knock. So here you are between your own four walls, with the weight of what you've seen pressing into your ribs. You can turn away, tell yourself it's not your fight, and wait for the silence to swallow it. Or you can speak, share, record, push for policies that balance enforcement with humanity. Because the story doesn't end at the raid, it ends with what you decide to do next. And that ending is yours to write. The street is quiet now. The sun has set, leaving the houses in a wash of amber and shadow. You imagine the families inside, some still tense at every car door slam, others trying to slip back into routines as if nothing happened. The air feels heavier, but softer too, as if the day itself is finally ready to rest. You think about the small moments that survive even the loudest days, the way Marisol's daughter clung to her sleeve, the chalk drawings that hadn't yet faded, the apple slices still browning on the counter. They aren't just fragments of a raid. They're anchors to a truth that numbers and headlines can't hold. It's tempting to tuck the memory away, to let time blur the edges. But you know that's how these stories vanish. They don't disappear because they're resolved. They disappear because they're ignored. And somewhere not far from here, another door will be knocked on. Another family startled awake. Another driveway filled with the quiet sobs of someone left behind. So you let the scene replay once more, not as an open wound, but as a reminder. You slow your breathing. You picture the street in daylight, children walking to school, neighbors tending gardens, the sound of laughter instead of boots. The choice to act or to stay silent doesn't feel urgent in this moment, but that's when it matters most. And as you let the last of the day slip into night, you tell yourself, if the knock comes again, you'll be ready not because you expect it, but because you refuse to forget.